Hey, good day. It's Mike from Flex Radio, and I have the great honor today of recording and shooting a show with Mike from DX Engineering, Kilo India 8 Radio. And Mike, good morning. We're both dealing with a little bit of snow, so that'll timestamp when we record this, which is the end of January. I'm in Toronto. Mike, you're in Ohio. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Mike?
Good, good. So we'll get going. Mike, I always ask this to all my guests first. What dragged you into ham radio really quickly?
Well, okay, so let's talk about that, because this radio behind me, the KI8R's SX210, is probably that, and the fact that I have an uncle, or had an uncle who passed away recently, who passed away about 10 years ago, who was in the hobby. But my parents told me that when I was 2 or 3 years old, I'd stand in front of this radio for hours and twist the knobs on it. So that probably got me into it. I actually got licensed when I was 16, right after my 16th birthday, and actually took the novice CW test on my birthday. That was kind of wild, but got into it. I've been into it for 45 plus years now, and I've been, unlike a lot of guys, I've been active the whole time, and it's been just a lot of fun the whole time. Been doing lots of different things, and try different things. This is a hobby of 100 different hobbies, so there's always something new.
What's your latest first? You know, it was our first contact, right? Have you had a latest first?
Latest first. I probably last year I did some stuff with the ICOM 10 gigahertz stuff, and I got my first 2 QSOs on rain scatter. One which was 150 miles away up in Fort Wayne, and another one about 100 miles away up on Lake Erie. And what a blast. Oh my gosh. One of the most cool things I've ever done in this hobby. I know you do some stuff on 10 gig.
If you had told me I would be able to do 800 or 900 kilometers, have an FM contact with a guy from Toronto down in your neck of the woods, or south of you in the Cincinnati, while just standing on a small hill, I would have told you were nuts.
Right.
But it happens.
Right. Yeah. And, anyway, and there's a big 10-meter beacon down there in Cincinnati too, or 10 gigahertz beacon. But yeah.
Yeah, we're really fortunate to have a whole bunch of microwave guys here in the Toronto area. So what's the first thing that stood out the first time you put one on the air?
So, okay. So I've owned, as you can see behind me, I've owned probably, I don't know how many radios over the years, and I still own quite a few. I have this thing called gear acquisition syndrome. And so I buy things and I never sell them, but they're still fun to pull off the shelf and play with once in a while. But, and you know, one of the other things too, is that because I get to work at DX Engineering and make YouTube videos, I get to spend a lot of time with gear that a lot of people maybe don't get to spend with. So radios and other things. And it's just a lot of fun. But to answer your question, I've had the opportunity to spend time with Flex radios and on radios, on Sun SDR radios. And I have a good friend who lives a few miles from me who's owned almost every high-end radio there is. But I had a chance to spend some time some FaceTime with each one of these radios, and just, I knew what I was kind of getting myself into. But you know, when you sit down in front of a Flex radio for the first time, even if you've had some FaceTime with it in the past, there's a learning curve here. And, you know, there's a learning curve with any radio today, but Flex, you know, there's definitely a learning curve. It's not a difficult radio to master, but you've got to open the manual. And a lot of hams don't like opening manuals. Ask me how I know. But anyway, I think a lot of times you get into the radio, you open the manual there. You do a great job with putting YouTube content out there for these things. There's the Flex community. There's all kinds of things out there to help you get going. And you'll get there and you'll master this radio, even if you're not using the quote unquote M version of this radio with the face on it, or the Maestro. Using the SDR, smart SDR software, it really works very well. And but Flex feels like maybe, I don't know if this is, I think this is probably a fair assessment on my part. Flex feels like a little bit of a different approach to ham radio. And so especially with the interface, and I think it's just a really great rig. I can't say anything negative about it.
I think you nailed it too. You and I, or anybody that's been in HF long enough, we could pick up ICOM Kenwood Yaesu off the shelf and be pretty productive with it pretty quickly, because we know we have to find the buttons for power, mic gain, etc. But they're still, when you think of it, they're a bit cookie cutterish.
You're right.
True. And so good. Well, I'm glad you had some fun with it too. And like anything, I maybe I was taught as a kid in the software world, don't try to use the software the way you think it should work. You need to sort of think as the designer. That's really hard to do. It's stuck with me, but I'm just a weird geek that way. I think you sort of answered this, but let's go into the learning curve part. Okay. How steep did you expect the learning curve to be, and how did that compare with the reality of getting on the air?
I knew there was going to be a learning curve here, and I've had learning curves with other radios that I own, and I would say this is as steep as any of them. But once you get into it and you start to wrap your head around concepts like what DAX is, and things like that, or how to navigate smart SDR, these things, after you spend some time with it, some quality time with it, you'll be great. It's not a radio you're going to sit down in front of the first day and just start twisting knobs and making cues. Some people may be able to do that, but I think a lot of people won't. And it takes time.
Did you, I've done a lot of videos, did you figure out the automatic gain control threshold, which is probably one of the most powerful receiver controls?
Oh, absolutely. That is really cool.
And how quiet the radio got?
Radio is very quiet anyway. But yeah. Okay,
next question. Again, sort of on the same topic. Can you walk us through first day, what it looked like from unboxing, and then how long before you actually, some of us listen a lot before we actually transmit, and others just want to hammer the key, and that's fine too.
Right.
What'd you do?
So first of all, the radio I have on my desk right now came back as a return. And so I had to get some coaching from Andy to reset this radio back to its initial configuration. But once I was able to get that done, I was able to install the firmware, version 4 firmware, which is dead simple to do. You guys make it so simple to install firmware on these things. And when there's a new version, it pops up and tells you, and you can download it if you want to. And if you want to go back to an older version, it's really easy to do that as well. But again, since I'm a CW guy, it was pretty easy to get going. I think I worked a handful of POTUS stations that day, just to kind of get my feet wet. Also was able to get Smart SDR downloaded. I consider myself relatively savvy when it comes to this stuff, but it got up and running and worked really well.
Excellent. Okay, next question. What features did you think you would use occasionally, but now find yourself using all the time?
So a couple things. Number one, I really like the ability to watch 6 meters. I think you've talked about this on the podcast, but the ability to kind of keep an eye on 6 meters while you're doing other things is really cool. Not that I can't do that maybe with one of my other radios, but it's really nice just to have that ability in one box. Also, I think the thing that surprised me the most here was how much I got into Smart SDR, because being in this hobby for 45 years and twisting knobs and pushing buttons my entire life, Smart SDR is a different animal and a different way of thinking. And I really, once I started to get into that, it really clicked. And I actually started liking it more than turning the knobs on the radio, which really again surprised me.
In my club talks about, not your dad's HF radio, I talk a lot about and you have customers that come in the store like this, right? And all of us are wearing glasses or whatever, and they're squinting at knobs or looking at a radio. And I'm not going to say the model I picked on, but go count a couple of them and how many buttons or knobs are in the front of most typical top line HF radios, and it exceeds 100,
right?
With multiple levels of shift and function, with 6-point font.
Yaesu 9000. Probably the biggest offender of that number.
I'm going to what's the 5,000 I would pick on, because it was anyway, but it's true, right? And then, so now we're either mounting the radio up higher, or you're squinting down, or you're painting buttons with nail polish, or, and then, it's the things I've heard back from a lot of people who have made the move that, hey, I can make my operational screen as big as I want now. And it's the demographics of what sells is either black box, or they want the traditional M model where you can just sit it on a picnic bench and plug it in and use it. But then they get the hang of it, and then they never go back to the M model, and they upgrade to a black box or a Maestro, because the Maestro is just nice and clean. And we can thank guys in the beginning to make that really clean. I'm not sure how much you got into the ecosystem between the networking, the integration, and setting up your station for logging, etc.
So I haven't gotten into that too much yet. I need to spend more time with that. I do run Ham Radio Deluxe, which I know is going to be fairly easy to get working with that. I'm not a digital guy, so WSJT is not going to buy me anything, but a lot of guys love it. That's awesome. It's not me. I know that that DAX makes it really, really simple. And you did a great video explaining how all that works. And I recommend that to anybody who gets a Flex. It really just breaks it down and explains it. And if you're a digital guy or a RIDI guy who likes to contest, that makes all the sense that does. Yeah.
They did a good job with DAX and CAT, because now we're not limited to running everything on one computer, and everything still works, whether it's some old MMTTY program. I am a Ham Radio Deluxe fan, and I keep bugging Mike to finish his integration over at Ham Radio Deluxe. Anyway, they're getting there as well, so that's good.
Yep.
You've supported a lot of customers in setting up stations. You know how those conversations are never short. Have you got any that you've recommended the Flex Radio ecosystem to, and why, type of thing?
So I think one of the things that this radio really lends itself to is remote operation. And so, there's a lot of guys today who, let's face it, none of us are getting any younger. And, whether you live in an HOA or an apartment, or you're reaching that point in life where you move into a assisted living facility, or whatever, and you still want to be on the air. Radio like this really lends itself to that very, very well. And Flex, again, makes it super simple to do. Also, again, and I'll go back to what I said earlier, for contesting, if you're into digital contesting or RIDI contesting, even SO2R and GASP 2BSIQ, that radio really will lend itself well for all that stuff.
Yeah, the 8600, the old 6600, and the Aurora 520 series, if you're not aware, if you're new to Flex, are a drop-in, full-blown SO2R box, full N1MM integration, full OTRSP, which is the audio management. I can set one up now in about 5 minutes. I can talk somebody over the phone in about 10 to do a full. And you know what it's like setting up two anythings in SO2R. It's a plumbing nightmare.
It is.
Great. Okay, here's what's surprised. Now you've had it a few weeks. Anything really surprised you?
I'd say, again, probably the thing that surprised me the most was how much I really like the Smart SDR software. Again, I'm a button and knob guy. That's how I grew up. That's what I grew up in, this hobby. And so that was the thing, and how much I like it. And honestly, as I get more into it, how much I prefer it. because it's easy to navigate. It's easy to see everything on a big screen. That, as a good friend says, a beautiful thing.
Do you know that the resolution on the waterfall is down to 4 hertz,
Right.
which is not very wide signal, per pixel?
That's crazy.
It is crazy, and so you can really dig into somebody's signal and just see in a sideband signal, if you're that type of person, and see where the energy is or where the energy isn't. Next question. We're almost done. If a customer came into DX Engineering saying they were intimidated by SDR, software-defined radios, what would you tell them now?
Well, okay, so SDR's been around for what, over 20 years now? And so it's not a brand new technology. Superhead's been around for over 100 years. And so I think you just have to say it's just different, but in some ways it's a lot better. Just the fact that with an SDR radio, and you can't do this on a superhet, you can, if you want to add another feature, you just write some code. And you guys are doing that every day. So making something better that already exists. So version 4 is a perfect example of that.
So there's have you heard the term waveform?
Yeah.
So waveforms are all the modes. So sideband is a waveform, CW is a waveform, RTTY. RADE or digital voice, free DV is a waveform. It's already being a plug and play in the Tapper group, where you can have it just show up like a mode on the radio. It does it today with a bit of not a bit of trickery, but you have to add something like a Raspberry Pi. And when I run it, I just go, free DV, and I'm there, and I use the same mic, same everything. And there will be more of that, which is often. All right. Looking ahead, how do you see Flex Radio fitting into the future of HF operating?
So if you go back, I mean, when I first got in this hobby back in 1980, my first radio was a KI8 8R's, which at the time was the pinnacle radio, which was quite a radio for a kid who was 16 and didn't have any money, but somehow we made it work. And I had very supportive parents, but the radios today just far and away surpass anything that was out even 10 years ago. And so the rigs really are just absolutely amazing, and they just keep getting better over time. And that's the beautiful thing about an SDR, is that they can still get better over time with a firmware update. So and I'm really excited to hopefully get my hands on an Aurora, because I really want to do a review on it. Just everything I've seen so far, everything I've read so far, I think that's going to be an awesome rig. But I think the bottom line here is that if you want to do remote, or if you're in a retirement facility or whatever, if you have HOA issues or God forbid spousal issues, and you can't put up an antenna in your backyard, this radio, again, makes all the sense that does.
I have friends, I know of 3 or 4 people that have same issue, HOA, whatever, gone into assisted living. They have managed to convince a buddy of theirs that lives in the boonies, where it's quiet. Can I bore corner your garage? They've stuck the radio in the corner, some long wire antenna out the back end. And no, it's not their tri-bander they used to have, but they're having a blast. And we're going to see more of that. And then we have groups of people building these small clubs, sort of like plane ownership. And they share and they work it out. And there's going to be more stuff coming down like that. It's I've seen it coming and building, and COVID's made it remote more mainstream. And I know DX Engineering has seen remote becoming more and more mainstream as well, right? It's just crazy.
Absolutely.
Well, Mike, I wanted to thank you for taking time today. This has been great. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Will I see you at Hamcation?
I will be at Hamcation. And
it will be down there too, where it will be a little warmer, and maybe the snow they have there is gone by the time we get there. And thanks for taking the time today.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
73.